People imagine horror arriving like thunder, loud, sudden, obvious. But real fear comes gently. It slips through ordinary evenings, wearing the face of routine. That night was ordinary. The kind of British night that smells of damp grass and chimney smoke, where the street outside goes empty before 10 and the houses look like sleeping animals. I was 17, alone in our semi-detached in Kent, parents out at some charity dinner they didn't really want to attend. I remember the exact time because I kept checking it. 10:47 p.m. The clock in the living room ticked like a patient heart. The fridge hummed. A neighbor's dog barked once, then gave up on the world. I thought I was safe because nothing looked wrong. I didn't know a house could be wrong without moving. I had been reading in bed, a cheap paperback with a cracked spine, the kind you buy in train stations and forget on the shelf. The noise came while I was folding the corner of the page. Not a bang, not a crash, a whisper of movement along the hallway carpet, as if someone in socks had tested their weight on it. Old houses do that, I told myself. Pipes talk, wood breathes. Then it happened again. This time it wasn't the house. It was deliberate, human. I remember sliding my feet to the floor and feeling the cold bite through my socks. The hallway outside my room looked normal. Family photos, the ugly lamp Mom loved, the mirror that always made my face look tired, yet it felt longer than usual, like the walls had taken a step apart when I wasn't looking. The whisper came again, soft, shy, almost polite. Not words, but shaped like they wanted to be. I did what everyone does. I searched for reasons. Maybe Mom came back early. Maybe Dad forgot his wallet. Maybe the cat had learned to talk and wanted rent. Your brain becomes a clown when it's afraid. I called out, "Hello?" My voice sounded too small for the house. Something at the far end of the corridor answered, with silence so thick it felt physical. I reached for my phone. No signal. That was strange. We always had signal. Then the whisper arrived again, closer now, clear enough to carry shape. Sarah, my name, spoken the way a relative says it at a funeral, gently like it might break. The air turned tight around my throat. No one was home. The doors were locked. I had checked them myself. The sound came from above, from the attic, that place we never used, filled with Christmas boxes and the pram I grew out of before I could remember it. Mom always said, "Nothing up there but dust and wasps." But the voice waited there like it had rented the space. I climbed the narrow steps that folded from the ceiling, each one complaining like an old animal. The attic smelled of cardboard in summers that no longer existed, and in the corner stood the mirror. It was an ugly antique thing, oval, fox with age. I don't remember owning it. My reflection appeared, except the smile arrived before I made it. Her eyes were wetter, hungrier. She mouthed my name without sound. Behind me, the whisper spoke aloud. "Turn around." I didn't want to. Of course I did. Curiosity is fear's stupid cousin. When I turned, there was a woman near the chimney breast. Not solid, not smoke. Something in between, like a memory try on a body. She wore a dress too old for our century, and her feet didn't quite touch the boards. She asked very gently, "Do you like the house, Sarah?" I screamed without sound. She told me things, not with words exactly, with impressions that slid into my thoughts. The house had belonged to her once, a long time ago when trains still breathed steam and children disappeared politely. She had waited in the attic for years, listening to families replace each other like furniture. She was lonely, and lonely things grow teeth. That was the first night. It wasn't the worst. After my parents came home, I said nothing. How do you explain a woman who lives behind mirrors? But the house began to change. Objects moved inches. Photos tilted. The kettle boiled without permission. At school, I started seeing her reflection in classroom windows, riding buses beside me, standing among coat racks. She followed because I had answered. She liked rules. 1, never cover mirrors. 2, never sleep with the attic locked. 3, never invite another girl my age inside after dark. I broke the third without knowing. My friend Leanne stayed over one Friday. Leanne went home different. Quieter, older around the eyes. 3 weeks later, she tried to step in front of a train and swore someone pushed her from inside a reflection. Mom said I looked ill. Dad blamed exams. Neither believed me until the night the bathroom. Mirror wrote on itself in steam while we all watched. SARAHCOME. Dad smashed it with a hammer. The attic answered with laughter that rolled through the pipes like dirty water. We searched records. A girl named Edith Warren, 1912, lived in this very house when it was one of the first on the lane. Disappeared age 17. Her parents claimed she talked to mirrors and answered voices from the roof. The police called it hysteria. The newspapers called it tragedy. The house kept the rest. She wanted out. That was the truth. Mirrors were doors, but I was a handle. On the winter solstice, she asked for something simple. Let me borrow your shape. I said no. The power went at 11:32 p.m. Every mirror in the house turned black as wet ink. Footsteps came down from the attic. Not floating now, but walking. She wore my face when she reached the landing. My parents couldn't tell which daughter was theirs. She knew my memories, my birthmarks, the stupid song I sang in the shower. The house chose her. I ran into the street barefoot while she stood at our doorway, waving like a good child. The doctors called it breakdown. We moved, sold the house to a couple from London who liked period features. I still see her in reflective glass on trains, in shop windows, in the dark screen of my phone. Sometimes she practices my expressions. Sometimes she asks, "Ready to come home, Sarah?" If you live in an old British house, with an attic you never visit, and mirrors older than your grandparents, listen carefully tonight. When the building whispers, it isn't settling, it's remembering. And if something says your name from behind you, don't turn around like People think leaving some a place reflections means our patient live there. They can wait another lifetime to wear I was 23 when the house found me again. By then I lived in Brighton, worked in a bookshop that smelled of old paper and wet coats, and told myself the attic was just a nervous breakdown with good timing. Therapists love tidy explanations. Then the email arrived. No greeting, no emojis, just careful adult politeness. Hello, Sarah. We recently bought your childhood home. We found your name in some old paperwork and hope to ask a few questions about the property. Nothing urgent, just odd things. Mark and Hannah Reed. My stomach recognized the address before my brain did. 14 Ashgrove Lane. The house with too many mirrors. I didn't reply. The next day another message came. Please don't think we're mad. Our daughter has started hearing someone in the attic. They sent a photo without asking. A little girl, maybe 8, holding a stuffed fox in front of the familiar brick facade. Behind her, in the upstairs window, a pale blur bent at the wrong angle. I closed my laptop and tasted metal. I had sworn never to return, but the house had learned my new surname. Mark rang before I could block them. He sounded tired in that polite British way that hides panic. Look, we're not superstitious people, but Mia keeps talking to a lady in the roof. She says the lady knows your name. My name again, always my name. He asked a question I feared. Would you come and talk to her? Just once. The train to Kent felt like traveling backwards through my own spine. Fields, pylons, small stations where nothing ever happens. The Reeds waited outside the house, pretending it was normal. New paint, new door, same bones. Inside, the air recognized me before the people did. The little girl studied me the way cats study mirrors. She said you'd come, Mia whispered. Who did? The attic lady. She said you ran away and left her lonely. Hannah laughed too loudly and offered tea. The kettle clicked on by itself. They wanted me to look. Of course they did. The folding stairs still groaned like an old throat. Up there the mirror waited, clean now, shining like a patient eye. My reflection behaved for 3 seconds. Then she arrived behind it. Older, wearing my 20s like a borrowed coat. Welcome home, Sarah. Mark heard it too. His mug shattered on the floor. She had changed, not desperate anymore. Organized. She told us she liked the reads. But children break easily. Adults last longer. She needed a permanent body, not weekend rentals through glass. She proposed a trade. My life for Mia's safety. The reeds looked at me the way drowning people look at passing boats. I realized something cruel. The house had invited me back to be the solution to a problem it created. I asked the mirror, "Why me?" "Because you already fit," she said. We tried rules, salt lines, priests, engineers checking for gas leaks, and infrasound. The house enjoyed the attention. One night, every screen in the place showed old family, videos that never existed. Me as a child having birthdays I don't remember. Edith Warren clapping behind the sofa. History was learning to edit itself. Mia vanished for 7 minutes on a Sunday. We found her in the attic sitting cross-legged before the mirror, speaking in a voice too adult for her mouth. She says the choice must be tonight. The reeds cried without noise. I felt something settle over my shoulders, like a coat choosing an owner. I agreed to stay the night, not to surrender, to finish it. Mirrors need witnesses. Voices need listeners. I covered every reflective surface with black cloth while the family slept at the neighbors. At 11:32 p.m. the attic began to knock. She came out of the mirror like breath from cold lips. "We look like sisters now." I told her, "You're a memory pretending to be a person." She replied, "And you're a person pretending not to be a door." We argued like relatives who hate each other for knowing the same secrets. I offered a different bargain. Not my body, her story. Tell me your real name, not the one in newspapers. Let yourself be remembered properly. Names are heavier than houses. When she spoke it, the attic lights burst. The mirror cracked from the inside. At dawn, the house felt ordinary for the first time in a century. Mia laughed at cartoons. Hannah hugged me too hard. The mirror showed only one Sarah. I left without looking back. Last week, I received a postcard from the Reeds. "Doing well. Mia hasn't heard the lady again. We're converting the attic into a playroom." The photo showed bright shelves and a new mirror shaped like a cloud. In its corner, very small, a second smile practiced mine. Some houses don't heal. They rehearse. And I have a feeling the sequel, after this one, will not be narrated by me. People imagine haunted houses as loud places. Chains, screams, doors slamming like angry mouths. Our house was polite. It waited. I was 8 when Sarah came back to save me. At least that's the version my parents like. To tell dinner guests after enough wine. They say, children have big imaginations, but children also have excellent memories. I remember the attic lady, and she remembers me. After Sarah left, life became ordinary in a way that felt rehearsed. School runs, birthday cakes, Mom learning to breathe again. The attic turned into a playroom with yellow shelves and bean bags that smelled of plastic. The mirror shaped like a cloud stayed. No one asked why. I used to sit in front of it, waiting for the reflection to blink first. It never did. The first sign came when I was 13. My reflection began arriving a second late, like a shy friend stepping into a photo. I told no one. Teenage girls are already treated like unreliable narrators of their own bodies. The second sign was a handwriting. Homework margins filled with loops that weren't mine. Hello again, Mia. Teachers blamed stress. The house blamed patience. She didn't appear as a full shape anymore. Just suggestions. A sleeve at the edge of glass. A cough inside the pipes. My name spoken by the kettle. She gave advice. Which friends to avoid. Which boy would hurt me. Which road not to cross on wet mornings. Being haunted can feel like being cared for by something with bad manners. I left for Manchester at 18, convinced distance would cure everything. The first week in halls, the bathroom mirror fogged a sentence. Homesick already? My roommate thought it was a prank. I knew the grammar. She followed through phone screens, shop windows, the black eye of turned-off televisions. Places change, reflections don't. I researched Sarah obsessively, the woman who almost traded her life for mine. Online records, old articles, a bookshop in Brighton that no longer existed. Some say she moved abroad. Some say she never left the house at all. I dreamt she stood beside my bed like an older sister who regretted something important. When Dad died last year, the house called me back officially. Grief opens doors you didn't know were doors. The attic was still a playroom, though no child had played there for a decade. The mirror waited, patient as a doctor. That night she spoke, clearly for the first time since childhood. "Welcome home, Mia. You're tall now." She said Sarah had cheated her with a story instead of a body. Stories fade. Bodies don't. She wanted a partnership this time, not ownership. "Share the house with me. I'll share the years you won't live to see." Imagine being offered extra decades by something that doesn't breathe. I invited experts, psychologists, priests who smelled of peppermint, a man who measured electromagnetic moods like weather. Equipment failed politely. One priest asked to leave early because the mirror called him by a childhood nickname only his mother used. Science packed its bags. Faith pretended the train was canceled. Others began to notice. Deliveries addressed to Edith, a woman seen in the upstairs window, waving at children, walking to school. The postman asked if my aunt was visiting. "I don't have an aunt. Last winter the power cut across the estate. Only our house kept light, a soft yellow breathing through the curtains. Inside, the mirrors multiplied her. In spoons, phone screens, the glass eye of the microwave, she walked between them like a commuter changing trains. Time to decide, she said. I didn't want exorcisms or bargains. I wanted coexistence with boundaries. So I wrote a contract. Yes, a ridiculous legal-looking contract, and placed it before the mirror. Rules about appearances, about using my voice, about leaving future children alone. The pen rolled by itself and signed a name older than the road. E. Warren. Now we live together carefully. She keeps the silver clean and warns me about dishonest plumbers. I allow one mirror in every room and speak to her on birthdays. My boyfriend thinks I talk to myself while cooking. Perhaps I do. 2 months ago, a woman visited the house asking to see the attic. Older, tired around the mouth. She said her name was Claire, but when she touched the mirror, it whispered, "Hello, Sarah." The visitor left without tea. That night, the house laughed for hours. I've learned something adults hate to admit. Some hauntings are relationships. Toxic, yes. Dangerous, certainly. But also intimate in ways mortgages can't measure. The house doesn't want to kill me. It wants to continue. And I am convenient. If you ever buy 14 Ashgrove Lane, ask the estate agent about the mirror shaped like a cloud. If it's still there, so am I in a manner of speaking. I'll be the woman in the garden talking to someone you can't see. Don't worry, we're friendly most days. Just don't bring girls named Sarah into the attic. She gets jealous. It's 11:32 p.m. as I finish this recording. The mirror is warm like a sleeping animal. She's asking whether I'll have children one day. I haven't answered. Some questions are traps wearing curiosity. If this tape reaches you, know that I'm not a victim. I'm a neighbor to something older than planning permission. And neighbors, as Britain teaches us, must learn to get along. I used to believe memory was a house with locked rooms. Now I know it's more like a field after a fire. Shapes still standing, but nothing trustworthy inside them. 3 weeks ago, I found a box beneath the attic. Floorboards while repairing a loose plank. Not an old box either. Cardboard still smelling of the supermarket. Inside were school photos of me. The problem wasn't the photos. The problem was the dates. Every picture stopped at 2009. I asked Mom about it over tea. She stared at the mug too long before answering. You were such a serious child, she said. Not are. Were. Parents use the past tense by accident sometimes. I tried to forgive her grammar, but that night the mirror corrected it. You can grow up, Mia, she whispered from the glass while I brushed my teeth. You stretched. I booked an appointment with a GP who looked like he'd been assembled from tired envelopes. He checked my pulse, my reflexes, my pupils. Everything behaved correctly. Then he asked for my NHS number. I didn't have one. Not in the system. Not anywhere. He printed a form, frowned at it, and said, Maybe you should speak to someone who knows you better. The mirror laughed when I told her. It rained last Thursday, hard, theatrical rain that makes the gutters sing. I went outside to feel something ordinary. The drops passed through my hands like thin needles of cold light. My skin stayed dry. A neighbor waved from across the street, but his eyes slid past me as if I were a lamppost he'd already memorized. That was the first day I admitted the word, dead. I broke into the local records office at night, guided by the mirror's calm directions. There was a file about this address. 2009, attempted burglary, a child home alone, a struggle near the attic stairs. One line at the bottom, typed without emotion, minor deceased at scene, name redacted. I recognize the handwriting of the universe. The story Mum tells, the brave daughter who survived, is a coat she stitched over a skeleton. The men didn't run into the forest. They reached the attic before the sirens did. I remember now, the smell of wet wool, the weight of a hand that felt older than the man attached to it. The mirror watching like a patient moon. I never climbed out of the window. I climbed into the glass. Everything since then has been a kindness invented by the house. University, boyfriends, the job at the library where no one quite remembers hiring me. The mirror built a corridor of ordinary days, so I wouldn't notice the door at the end. She calls it mercy architecture. I call it lying. Sarah wasn't a rescuer. She was a witness who refused to agree with death. When she returned years later and touched the mirror, she wasn't greeting me. She was apologizing to a body she couldn't save. The house kept her voice as a souvenir. It keeps many things. I've started seeing them at night. Pale tenants moving between reflections. A boy with half a school tie. A woman carrying groceries from a decade that no longer sells those brands. A man missing the patience of his face. We share the house like a crowded afterlife, waiting for buses that won't arrive. None of us remember the exact moment we became furniture. I confronted Mum yesterday. She set a second plate at the table without thinking, then removed it quickly. I cook for habit, she said. There are no photographs of me after 16 because there was no me after 16. She waters the garden so the neighbors believe in continuity. Grief is excellent at paperwork. That ridiculous contract I thought I wrote, the ink was already dry when I found it. The signature, E. Warren, isn't the mirror's name. It's the coroner who signed my certificate. The house forged a joke out of bureaucracy. Tonight, she finally told me what she wants. Not company, not obedience. She wants replacement. A living girl to step through the glass, so I can step out and finish the life I borrowed. Bodies are doors, she said. You're only renting. There is a new family viewing the property tomorrow. They have a daughter with nervous hands and a name the mirror already enjoys. I'm meant to be the friendly presence in the upstairs window, the older sister I never became. I don't know if I'm strong enough to refuse. Death makes cowards of manners. If you are listening to this on Fractured Mind TV, understand something. You are not hearing a survivor. You are hearing furniture learning to speak. The attic light is on though no switch was touched. The mirror is breathing like a shallow animal. She says the viewers are windows too. That voices travel both directions. I'm placing the recorder beside the glass now. If it keeps talking after I stop, you'll know she accepted the invitation. And if a girl named Mia answers comments from this channel, do not congratulate her on being brave. Ask instead whose life she is wearing. The mirror is calling. It uses my mother's voice when it wants obedience. Good night, or whatever word the dead are supposed to use.